Hey y'all, bunch of puncha here, and I got another tier list video for you all. I had a lot of fun making my last tier list video with 2xKO, kind of ranking and assessing which characters I liked playing in that game versus which characters weren't really for me. So I thought I'd do something similar but go a bit broader. So for those of you who have been following my channel for a while, you'll know that I'm a huge modern control advocate. It is the main control scheme I use in games like Street Fighter 6 as well as Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. Granted, they're not all called modern controls. Some games you just call them like smart controls or progressive control system. Progressive control system, but you know what I'm talking about, like the more quote unquote like simplified control scheme in these games, right? So I thought, but also beyond just like again using this like modern controls in like Street Fighter 6 and Fatal Fury, Save the Wolves, I've also kind of taken it upon some of my content to explore like other games and see like how they've approached like the whole idea of accessibility and trying to bring new players in, whether it's like simplifying inputs or even like kind of adding auto combo systems and stuff like that. So I thought I'd take some time to kind of rank and assess like how these to kind of just to rank and assess how well these approaches work in terms of like bringing in new players, how well they work in terms of like letting players that use these systems engage with the game, right? So to kind of explain the categories I have here, top tier should be industry standard, should be the standard that everyone like kind of strives towards. Pretty good, okay, and why even bother? Like it's worse than it's you almost shouldn't have done anything, right? Like why even bother with it? So for how I usually like to do tier lists is I like to start on the outer edges and kind of work my way inwards. So starting with the top tier should be industry standard. I think Street Fighter 6 modern controls. I think it strikes that kind of perfect balance between like letting players like again really engage with the systems of Street Fighter 6 without kind of overshadowing classic controls. I think it has that, as we've clearly seen, it has like that viability in terms to it allows for the skill expression, so you could reach the higher ranks. It doesn't really like limit you in a way that a lot of these other control schemes do. And also beyond that, the developers have also gone out of their way to like when they patch the game and when they do like these balance updates, they try and keep like modern controls in mind. The greatest example, the largest example is Zangief. Like his initial variation of like modern controls is very different from like what it is now, and he feels like way more complete now in modern controls than he did like back when the game first launched. So no, overall, I think honestly, I wish games would just copy Street Fighter. I mean, I get it why they can't or they don't want to copy like Street Fighter 6's modern control scheme, and it's unfortunate. But it is what it is. I think Street Fighter 6 is the shining city on the hill in terms of like modern controls and like accessibility with them. On the opposite end, now this one might be. I'm trying not to let my own bias get in the way of this because I'm also not just. I don't really like the feel of this game. I think because it's like kind of feels like an older game, but honestly, I am not a big fan of how Fighting EX Lair does like their. In this game, they call it like the progressive control scheme. It's not the first game to do this. Like I think games like Guilty Gear Xrd or even BlazBlue, like a lot of the earlier BlazBlue games kind of predate Fighting EX Lair in terms of like incorporating like a more simplified control scheme. But this is like one of the earlier ones that I call to mind that like really made an attempt at it. And the issue that I have with Fighting EX Layers, like kind of again quote unquote like modern or like progressive control scheme, is that they don't. It feels wonky, and the main reason for that is that there isn't a dedicated like special button. So the way that they approached like simplifying a lot of these inputs is like using the same attack button, but instead of like down forward, you would have a character do like I remember the notation very specifically. It's like you have to return to neutral, and then like let's say you have to hit like um 3 and then punch, right? Or for certain moves like 1 and punch. And it doesn't seem that bad. And in like training mode, you could kind of hit it, if you kind of reacclimate your brain, you could hit it consistently enough. But God, it just in a match, it just is so difficult to do. Like again, something you could kind of get used to, but if it's like something you have to get used to, I guess my logic would be you could just get used to just doing the motion input for it. And some of the mapping is weird, like for example, I'm trying to remember. I played the grappler character, and like for one of his command grabs, it's like neutral, you return to neutral, and then I think you have to like hit up punch or something, but you have to be like close to the opponent, and it just does not feel good. I just wish they had the foresight to like have a special input button, because what they did with this isn't it. And I mean, I can't say that progressive is entirely bad in the broader sense, because at least from my understanding, some combos are easier with a progressive control scheme. But just for me, I did not like it at all. It just felt way too wonky. And maybe it's just from playing Street Fighter 6 and then going to something like Fighting EX Layer. It's just not really for me. So let's see, what else would I define on the outer edges? Oh, this one might be kind of a weird one, but another thing that I'm a huge advocate for, which kind of gets like a mixed reception from people on YouTube, is I actually think 2XKO has one of the best, with the pulse combo system, has one of the best like auto combo things in like a tag fighter. Now we know 2XKO by default has like the simplified inputs for specials, but I guess kind of focusing more on pulse combos, I think again it kind of strikes that nice balance to where it gives you like a good starting point for characters, but it's with how to, at least with how 2XKO is at the time of this recording, because I know down the line they're talking about like changing it up a bit in like a future balance update or something like that. But at least for how the system is right now, it's very loose to where even with the pulse combo system on, you could still do. You could. It gives you enough like wiggle room to kind of like be a bit more flexible with your combos, especially since from the onset you have to remember that pulse combos were originally a fuse, so they had to kind of design it with like for viability in mind, because let's say you duel with a friend that wants to use the pulse fuse and you're not used to it, well, you're still able to do what you normally do without the pulse fuse, just like either you have to hold back when pressing certain like inputs and stuff like that. But overall, I think it just feels really nice. I like the flexibility that it gives you in terms of comboing, but like the actual auto combos they give you aren't like too overpowering. It's not like too ridiculous that you'll see like with some of these other games. But no, I think it works really well, and there's a lot of misconceptions about it. I've gone into it with a few comments on YouTube. A lot of people keep saying that like, oh, if you use the auto combos, you get like decreased in damage, which I don't think is true. Like if you do this, like don't get me wrong, the auto combo routes aren't like optimal. Like obviously they're not optimal, but like if you did the same routes with like the pulse system turned off than with it turned on, I think your damage is still the same, at least from what I could find. I would like to find a resource saying that like, oh no, if you use the pulse combos, the pulse auto combos, you get less damage. But again, from what I've tried looking up, I don't think that's the case. But no, I think 2XKO did a really good job at the pulse combo system, and I even now I still see people like trying it out, and still see people like using it very effectively. Because there's no real like downsides to it, at least I mean, the only reason why you wouldn't want to use the pulse combo system is because like you're just used to not using it, which is fine. It's fair, like that is what it is. I guess going for another one on the opposite end. Okay, so Tekken 8's like their approach to I can't even call it like a full on control scheme, but like they're I can't even remember what they call it in Tekken 8. Like nobody like it got dropped immediately. But they have like a toggle with characters where you could turn it on and you could like do like very basic auto combos with characters, and it's just I don't know. Like I can't even say it's I mean, what I guess I will say is that it's probably the best that you can do with a game as complex as Tekken, right? Like, with you have characters with so many moves, I can't really imagine you like I mean, the only other thing that you could have really done for like a modern control scheme with Tekken is maybe something akin to what I'll talk about later is kind of the stylish mode in Guilty Gear where you try and make it more contextual based on like distance the opponent is, but like in a 3D space that gets super wonky. Yeah, what I'm basically saying is that like the simplified um input mode in like Tekken, yeah, I'll call it like the input mode in like Tekken 8 is probably the best that you're gonna get with Tekken, to be honest. But even then, it's so bad, like I don't think it's even worth it, to be honest. Like maybe it got a few people to try the game, but like now nobody uses it. I don't even think people have I can imagine people don't even like map the input to like turn it on and off anymore. Just not it's there, I guess, is all I can say. Uh let's see. Okay, so this one is kind of I'm kind of fudging a little bit with like my definitions here of like games with a modern control or like simplified control scheme, but I want to give a special shout out to Akatsuki Blitzkampf. Now I put this in should be industry standard, and the reason for that is I think Akatsuki Blitzkampf should actually be I think the like again, I'm an advocate for like modern controls. There are just certain motion inputs I'm not a big fan of. I don't like Dragon Punch personally. You know, I'm not a big 360 360 guy myself. But I don't think you necessarily need like a modern control scheme with just one button special inputs. I think what Akatsuki Blitzkampf does is would honestly satisfy me enough. I like the idea that so what Akatsuki Blitzkampf does is that most characters they cut out like Dragon Punch input, right? They cut out like full circle and I think like half circle commands or anything wonky like that. Like the only thing that you get with the Akatsuki Blitzkampf from my memory is basically quarter circle. There are some charge characters, but honestly, I don't think charge inputs are that difficult. That's my hot take. And down inputs, I think, for certain like anti-airs and stuff like that. And that's basically it, right? Um, but also beyond that too, I always praise how Akatsuki Blitzkampf approaches its roster because it is a smaller roster, but each character feels like it's very much tailored to very specific playstyles. Even if you have like a few zoners, each zoner feels like it's very specifically honed to accommodating certain players, and that includes for accessibility reasons. For example, my favorite fighting game character of all time, Fritz, kind of accommodates people that not only do you not like accommodates for like not only simple inputs but also like if you're not a big combo guy, which I'm not. I prefer like just characters that have an interesting neutral game without having to think about like without like having to land like 10 plus hits or something in a sequence. Just give me one or two hard hitting hits and I'm good. And I've talked about this in other videos where I was praising Fritz, but no, I think Akatsuki Blitzkampf I think strikes that really good balance between keeping like motion inputs and stuff like that, but also making accommodations for like people for certain people and certain like I guess difficulties that players might have with like approaching other fighting games, whether it's like trimming the fat on like complex movements or again like having characters that fit certain play styles, right? And without really much overlap too. Like that's for as much as I love Street Fighter 6, I feel like there is kind of some design overlap with like certain characters. Like how we're up to like how many Shotos now? Um, and yeah, and stuff like that. So no, I think Akatsuki Blitzkampf. If we have to like, let's say, have a future in which modern controls are just never a thing, I think Akatsuki Blitzkampf would be like my preferred. Like, this is the solution to simplifying controls or simplifying motion controls for newer players. And it's honestly kind of what I want. I want like again, I don't need modern controls. I just, if games want to drop modern control scheme, just give me like one or two characters that are like, okay, here's the character if you don't like crazy motion inputs, or if you don't like big combos and stuff like that, or you want like an easier character, here's the character for you. I always love when fighting games do that. Okay, so kind of getting more into like the middle sections here. I guess I'll just go in order. Fatal Fury, Fatal Fury, City of the Wolves. Now this one's an interesting. When it first came out, I probably just would have put it in the okay category, because their system is called the Smart Style, or yeah, Smart Style control scheme. Yeah, I think it's like Smart, and like, yes, arcade and then Smart. And with the first iteration of Smart Controls, you couldn't break, you couldn't really oh my god, what's the mechanic called? Rev or Excel? It's something like that. Yeah, you couldn't like really break. You could. Oh yeah, you also couldn't really feint moves and stuff like that. And it was fine. A lot of there were some characters that I think kind of benefit. Like Street Fighter 6, there were some characters that kind of benefited a lot from the Smart Style control scheme more than others. However, they had a recent update that actually, for me, bumped it up to pretty good, because they added the ability to break and to feint and stuff like that. So now you're actually engaging with more of the game, and you're actually able to do, more advanced combos. Now, it's not like, I still don't think it's as good as Street Fighter 6, because you're mainly limited by the fact that you have to full commit. Like, one of the disadvantages is you have to like full commit your meter resource, so you can't like save your super meter for like, oh, they're almost gonna die, I just want to use like one bar of it. No, you have to use the full thing when you're doing like these combos and stuff like that. But other than that, no, I think this is very good. Like, if you can't exactly copy Street Fighter 6, this would probably be like the next best thing to like go for. Under Night in Birth. I My experience with this is very limited, but like, their kind of approach to it is they have, I think they call it like a smart steer system, where if you mash like the light button, they'll give you a very basic auto combo. And I think, where do I want to put this? I think it's just okay. I mean, it's with the smart steer system is always on for people. So what I do like about how they approached it, like their auto combo thing, is that as it is under Night in Birth, has kind of a very intuitive combo system. Like, once you know about it, like how you can kind of Gatling from light, medium, heavy, and then kind of, I think, go in reverse and stuff like that. But what I like about how they did the smart steer smart steer system is that if you're learning the game, it gives you a nice way to just like, if you want to quickly cash out your super, because the smart steer, if you have like your full like meter, it'll cash out into like your, I forgot what the game calls it, like your super move, or like your it has a specific name in this game, but like it lets you cash out your super. And so I think that's a very nice thing to do, but for the most part, it's not really something you're going to be using that often, or something that you really need to be using that often. But yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, I think it's just okay. Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising. Now this is I'll you know what, I'll talk about the Guilty Gear one first, because this is I have the Guilty Gear XR logo here, but I'm also gonna lump it in with like BlazBlue because they have like a very simple kind of approach to accessibility, and that's with like kind of it's called like you have a technical control scheme, and then you have in Xrd it's called stylish. I can't remember what it's called in BlazBlue. It might be also called stylish, where it's they give you auto combos, they give you one button specials, but a lot of it is it's not consistent. Like it's very contextual based, where it'll try and like guess. I've talked about this before, where it kind of wants to guess at what you want to do, or guess at what the best what the best route will be given like the position of your opponent. And like conceptually, it's a good idea, but ultimately its execution is just okay. The game really struggles to figure out like what it should be doing for like if your opponent is airborne and you try and hit them with like an initial hit. And yeah, I think it's just okay. But conversely, I think Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising actually takes this system and brings it up pretty good. I think it does a lot. It does a much better job, and part of this might be just how Grand Blue is as a game. It's a lot more grounded, so you don't have to deal. It's a lot more grounded. You don't have to deal, like for example, with Xrd, you don't have to deal with like character weights, which like the stylish system just couldn't do. At least, yeah, Grand Blue. I think in Grand Blue you don't have to deal with character weights. But no, I think it just does a much better job at what this is doing in terms of like kind of giving you auto combos that are useful. For example, it gives you like good I can't remember stylish did too, but in Grand Blue, if your character is blocking and you hit them with an auto combo string, it'll end in giving you like what's the term I'm looking for, like block advantage, as opposed to going into like the full on like combo ender path or whatever. So no, I think Grand Blue Fantasy versus Rising did a very good job with their smart is also, yeah, I think it's also called smart style controls, and like yeah, it's like super dynamic, smart, and then manual. Yeah, I think that's it. Smart and then like manual. But no, I think and just talking about the smart style controls, I think it does a really solid job. And I had video evidence to prove that you could get pretty far with it too. I've gone to S++ in the ranking system. I don't think you could get to master rank, but I talked about that in a whole other video. But no, I think it's pretty good. I think it's a solid upgrade from what they were trying to do with the stylish control scheme in like Xrd and like BlazBlue. Let's see, Dragon Ball Fighters. Oh, where do I want to put this one? I think I'm gonna put this on the upper end of. On the upper end of okay, just teetering on pretty good. So their approach is, simplified motion inputs. I think it's just quarter circle, and I think maybe down for certain stuff. I'm pulling from the farthest reaches of my memories with Dragon Ball Fighters. It's been a long time since I played it. It was kind of in that phase where I was kind of falling out of fighting games, so bear with me as I'm trying to remember this. No, yeah, I think the auto combo system. I know it's had some issues with like the auto tracking and stuff like that, but I think for the most part, in terms of again like getting players to at least getting players into the game, I think it works well enough. I like how you could also incorporate some of the, like, let's say you don't have your combo game fully fleshed out yet. You could, do kind of a mix of like, just manually stuff it, manually doing certain hits. And then like, if you need the auto combo, you could just kind of fall back on it, which I think is really nice. But yeah, I think it's just okay. Obviously it's not something that you should that I think you can overly rely on, especially in like higher end play, because you'll get opened up too easily. But I think it works well enough. BlazBlue cross tag battle. God, kind of a very similar approach to Dragon Ball Fighters. Um, yeah, I think I'll also put in the okay category. Um, yeah, like you have auto combos in there. A lot of the inputs across the board are also like simplified. You have a simplified like super, which is just like hitting down 3 times and like a combination of buttons. Auto combos aren't amazing, but I think they can, if you have like a good neutral game, it can kind of help you. Like I seem to do okay with it even now. I mean, don't get me wrong. Occasionally, I do get blown up with if I play cross tag battle against like really good players, but I think it works well enough. I don't think it's like the worst out there or anything like that. Yeah, I think it's very compared. It's probably like the tier below Dragon Ball Fighters. I think in terms of its like auto combos. Um, okay, so this is kind of a personal one I want to talk about: Capcom versus SNK 2. Now, this is like one of the first fighting games I ever played, and I played for context. God, I can even take you through the whole story of it. I rented it from like a local video game, like kind of our local Blockbuster, but it's not really Blockbuster, right? Um, Rented this game, and I rented it on the GameCube, and the GameCube version of Capcom vs. SNK 2 had like a special control scheme or a special not control scheme. Oh my god, what were they called? I was gonna call them fuses, but they're not fuses. They're like different, like God, what is the name? Isms. Yeah, they're called like kind of isms, and it basically picking different like isms in the game lets you it changes how your character plays in like a match or something. And one of the isms in like Capcom versus SNK 2 was GC ism or like GameCube ism, and I think part of that, if I'm remembering this, this is pulling even further back from my memory than like Dragon Ball Fighters. Like, whoa, man. But anyways, with a GCism, one of the things that they gave you was simplified special moves, and how they did that was the C stick on the GameCube. If you tilted it in certain directions, you could do certain like specials. I think even certain like supers, and it's just depends on like how far you tilt it in certain directions. And probably not good at all, but I think for the gimmick of it, I want to put it in pretty good. I had a lot of fun with it as a kid, probably trash with it, and everything. And actually I have a funny story. After playing Capcom versus SNK, 2 Mark of the Millennium, I thought, all GameCube fighting games have like the special moves mapped to the C stick. So I went to I picked up like Capcom Fighting Jam, and I was like severely disappointed when it's like, it doesn't. This isn't a thing across all fighting games. So that's the reason why I hate Capcom Fighting Jam was because it like set me up for so much disappointment when I was a kid. Oh my god, you know what? I am missing a game here. Hold on. I'm probably gonna snip this part out. There you go. Never mind. I don't need to. Yeah, I forgot to put in KI. So KI. So this is a weird one. So KI has kind of it's not a full-on simplified control scheme. Like for certain motion inputs and stuff like that, you still have to like do them, but they give you with the way that I'm gonna be terrible at explaining this. So KI has a very specific structure sequence. I can't remember all the terminology, but basically, what the game gives you is it gives you like this kind of I guess mode to where you could extend combos just with like like button taps instead of like having to go into like have to do like the special move motion inputs to like extend certain combos and stuff like that. And honestly, it feels really nice, and there's not really a lot of drawbacks to using it. Like even some of the pro players sometimes use it for like there's one option for kind of if you want to use like the simplified control not really scheme or something. Yeah, I guess you could call it like a scheme for like ultra enders, right? So uh God, should I add a category for it? Coming back here. So KI, I has to put into its own category. It's very good, but it's so specific to how KI works. I can't imagine you could implement it in other things. Um, but yeah, still very good. It certainly makes KI very approachable. So now you're focusing more on like the combo and the breaker system and everything. But moving on, Samurai Showdown. Now, the reason why I want to put Samurai Showdown here is very similar to the reason why I've included something like Akatsuki Blitzkampf. It doesn't have like a separate like modern control scheme, but it does again what I think Akatsuki Blitzkampf does in terms of like it gives you mainly for the guest characters, because I guess their logic was like for guest characters, people that aren't familiar with Samurai Showdown will come to try Samurai Showdown, so they want to make the guest characters more approachable. So, for example, I play Warden, right? He's from For Honored, and for him, his move list is a lot more condensed, and like his special moves are only mapped to like quarter circle motions. I think, yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, it's just quarter circle motions for him. There's also another character from like I don't know, it's like a Chinese gacha game or something. That again, similar thing. She just has quarter circle motions for her special moves. I'm probably not gonna put it as. I'm trying to think if I should put it on okay or just pretty good. I think again, probably on the higher end of okay. Only because like supers are still like this weird like half circle motion input even for characters like Warden and stuff like that. But overall, again, like what I was talking about with the Akatsuki Blitzkampf, this kind of does it where it's like they want to give you like one or two characters where okay, these are like the easier characters to approach with because either they have a condensed move list or like their inputs are a lot simpler. I just think there was slightly more that could have been done there. And the last one, Tokon Fighting Souls. Now, this one might be kind of controversial. I think it's pretty good. I know there were a lot of complaints in this last beta, which is where I got to try Tokon Fighting Souls, and maybe I'm biased because it was the first time I tried Tokon, but I was actually having a lot of fun with it. Yeah, I was having a lot of fun with Tokon, and I think it does a lot of very similar things to 2xKO's auto combo system, especially, and this might have been something I forgot to mention with 2xKO, but one of the things you could do is like you could go into like you could start a sequence with like a light starter for your auto combo and then like adjust to like medium to get like the medium ender or like the heavy to get like the heavy ender, and Tokon has the same thing with its own system too. And honestly, it was just a ton of fun. It had the consistency that I wanted that you don't really get in like let's say like the stylish system and stuff like that. And on top of that, unlike Dragon Ball Fighters auto combo system, or Dragon Ball Fighters, I should say broadly, this also has an option for the simplified, inputs for special moves, and you also have like the trait button, which is also like kind of a second special move thing depending on certain characters. But no, I think Tokon Fighting Souls is good. I think it's just a matter of balancing. But if they balance it right and they leave the auto combo systems as they are, with like going from light to medium to heavy and stuff like that, I think it's gonna be very good. I think it's gonna be very fun to play around with. I was having a ton of fun with it personally. But yeah, I think this is it. Yeah, so yeah. Yeah, I think overall I'm pretty satisfied with the end result of this. But I think that is going to do it for me. If there's a game that I haven't featured on this list that I didn't like rank, it's probably just because I haven't had enough time to like actually like play it enough to assess like their modern control schemes or how they approach accessibility. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. If you have any comments or like maybe there are some, games that you want me to explore with kind of these like, with kind of its own accessibility stuff or like its own modern control scheme stuff, just, yeah, go ahead and let me know. And I hope you all have an awesome day. I'm not sure what the next video is going to be. Maybe 2XKO stuff. I'm still waiting for, Geese to come out this month. I mean, he's probably going to come out. He has to come out next week at the time of this recording, right? Like probably 22nd. I would have to imagine. I don't know if they announced anything for that yet, though. So I'll have to check that out, and hopefully I'll be able to put out a video checking out Geese in Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. Still waiting. Still have a long time to wait for Alex in Street Fighter 6. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they aren't leaving his charge inputs in that game because, again, I don't have that much of an issue with charge inputs. But yeah, I'm really curious to try him out now, especially since they're kind of moving him to like a stance character. That might be a ton of fun. Granted, I'm not great with stance characters, but I'm losing my voice. Take care, everyone.